is success for Tennessee in 2024? Heading into Josh Heupel's fourth season in Knoxville, his tenure can only be categorized as a successful one so far. I don't think anybody would argue that. The 3 seasons start back in 2021, 2022, 2023. They've all had successful campaigns. I think so far the Heupel era at Tennessee has been a successful one. Now, I think we're trying to still figure out what the ceiling of that is. But with that being said, this is a proud program and a fan base that expects to compete for national championships. I know they haven't had one since 1998, but still, this is a Tennessee program that still has plenty of alum. A lot of the base remembers the 70s through 90s, the General Neyland. They remember the Philip Fulmer era. After that, it's really been maybe a season with Butch Jones in 2016, and until now, Josh Heupel. So this is still a fan base that expects to compete for championships. And while Josh Heupel has won a lot of games, key statement of that is the key word out of that statement being games. Is he's won a lot of games in Knoxville, 27 to be exact in 3 seasons, and that's awesome. But 35 to 36 guys left the program last year that were Jeremy Pruitt's his last group of guys. So now this is officially heading into year 4. Now, this isn't some monumental statement by any means for anybody. This is not some monumental statement. This is Josh Heupel's roster now. Give or take, there's going to be a Pruitt guy here or there. But, for the most part, after there's 35, 36 guys left, this is his program now. And with the ever-changing landscape in college football, expectations are going to change around the country, and Josh Heupel is not going to be immune to that anymore. At some point, it's just not going to be about winning games at Tennessee. It's going to have to be competing for championships and winning championships at that point. So it got me thinking, what would be a successful season in Tennessee for Tennessee in 2024? I am your host, Dave Shumate, coming at you from the SEC Unfiltered platform. All things SEC, 24/7, 365. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of what would be a successful season for Tennessee in 2024, go to MYBOOKIE.ag and use the code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. Remember the code SECU. We got a lot of things going. You got the SEC baseball tournament going on right now. I believe you got Arkansas, South Carolina. Speaking of Tennessee, you got Tennessee Vanderbilt on deck. A lot of things to go bet on, NBA playoffs. And obviously in the fall, you got college football. I don't have to tell you where to go bet. It's MYBOOKIE.ag. Remember to use the code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit. But back to the Tennessee Vols. Again, I think you can make a case. This is a trajectory year for Tennessee and Josh Heupel. Trajectory year. Not necessarily saying – I think I know what Josh Heupel's floor is. I do, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's 7-8 wins, which I think a lot of programs will take that. But what is his ceiling? We know 2 years ago in 2022, they won 11 games. Were in contention until they lost to South Carolina for a playoff spot. But is that his ceiling? Is that his ceiling? With the 12-team playoff expanding, expectations for Josh Heupel are going to be championships, I think, starting this year. People are going to really want to judge. Because like I mentioned, 99% of the Jeremy Pruitt guys are gone. This is Josh Heupel's team. I think even your realistic, objective Tennessee fans would tell you that, and they're going to start judging Josh Heupel by that. And I also think, just talking specifically 2024, and we'll get to it in a minute, but it's a very manageable schedule, a very manageable 12-game schedule. Again, it's the SEC. There's always going to be landmines, tough out there. They do go to Athens. They do host Alabama. I think NC State's a sneaky game in Charlotte. They have those. They have those potential hiccups running the roads. Again, but I think from an SEC standpoint, it is a very manageable schedule. But as we've done with every one of these successful season segments for everybody, I'm going to give you 2 things to keep an eye on when judging success in 2024 if you're a fan of the Tennessee Volunteers. First, on offense specifically, I think improvement in the red zone. 73rd in red zone offense in 2023 for Josh Heupel. This isn't everything. Again, not just because you were great in the red zone. Texas was actually worse in the red zone statistically than Tennessee was last year. Texas won the Big 12, made the playoffs. But Texas was a lot more explosive than Tennessee was last year. If you're going to struggle in the red zone, you're going to have to be explosive to beat good teams. That was the difference between Tennessee and Texas. When I was looking that up, I was like, man, Texas wasn't great in the red zone either. But they made up with it through big plays through the air with guys like A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, guys like that. Tennessee didn't really have that last year. They didn't. And again, Jalen Hyatt was an unbelievable player in 2022. Got picked by the Giants for a reason. He's got take the top off the defense type speed. Like Tennessee didn't have that last year. Squirrel White worked him out at camp. Saw him personally in Birmingham. He can take the top off the defense, but he can't line up everywhere like Jalen Hyatt did and go win a lot of one-on-one matchups. And Jalen Hyatt's a little bit bigger. Overall, just more a complete player than Squirrel White is. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't have speed, but he's just obviously not the player that Jalen Hyatt was. And I think a lot of Tennessee fans would agree that they didn't have that guy last year that would make Tennessee's defense, that would make defenses scared of the Tennessee offense from a vertical standpoint. A lot of bubble screens and stuff like that. And I think Josh Heupel started to understand, especially after the Brew McCoy injury, he had to adjust a little bit. But if I'm a Tennessee fan, before we get into the black and white win total, so I'm going to keep an eye on for 2024. I want to see our red zone offense. I like Dylan Sampson. I don't know much about. I don't think they have a lot of guys after him. I mean, I know who they are, but I'm not totally sold on that production left. I think he needs some help. But Dylan Sampson is a guy that can really help that room out. Defensively, come on, ball fans. Are we surprised by this one? Are we surprised by this one? It's the secondary. You may have the best defensive player in the entire league in James Pierce for you at defensive end. Then on other guys on the defensive front, you got Amari Thomas, Bryson Easton. Rodney Gardner has a ready-to-go defensive line unit to go compete for the SEC. He does. He does. You could even maybe throw the front seven in general and just in general in that. And let's be honest, the defensive front has not been an issue for Tennessee the last 2 to 3 years in general, just in general. Tennessee's ranked second, and first in the SEC in tackles for loss the past 3 seasons. Let me repeat that. They ranked second in 2021, second in 2023, and first in tackles for the past 3 seasons. Totaling 296 negative plays in that span, according to my notes over here. So the Vols have had back-to-back top 25 run defenses, but the pass defense, I mean, I think anybody who's watched Tennessee football games here will admit it's been leaky throughout the past 3 seasons. The secondary cut down on many of the explosive plays it allowed last season, but over the past 2 seasons, Tennessee is ranked 10th and 11th in the SEC in pass efficiency defense against conference opponents. Key word being there, or key 2 words I should say, is conference opponents. 10th and 11th in the SEC in pass efficiency defense against conference opponents. Also, I mean, you could admit the Kamal Hayden injury last year got picked in the NFL draft. That hurt them. That hurt them as well, even going back to 2022. But who can help there? I mean, they lost a lot of guys. Tamari McDonald's gone. Who else did they lose? We lost Tamari McDonald. They lost Wesley Walker. Yep, that was another. And Danico Slaughter. That was the third one. Sorry, they all slipped my mind there. Those were the 3 guys that they all lost. Can they replace them? They brought in Ricky Gibson. Or they didn't bring in Ricky Gibson was there. The guy played a little bit last year. He's got his feet a little bit wet. They did bring Oregon State transfer in Jermon McCoy to man the other spot. Then potential guy I liked out of the AAC was the Temple transfer, the Jalen McMurray kid, I believe. So they brought in some guys. I mean, you got Ricky Gibson, a guy that's already there. Can he take that next step? Oregon State transfer Jermon McCoy has production in a good program like Oregon State over there with the Beavers and Corvallis. And then Jalen McMurray, a guy, can his group of 5 success translate at the SEC level? We'll see. I don't really think the personnel's there really to improve that much. I think it's going to be a little bit of, hey, can this pass rush help us with guys like James Pierce? Can that help us? Can we get an interior pass rush? Can that help us as well? I think that front seven's obviously going to have to set the tone there, but I still, personnel-wise, I don't see a lot of help there. I don't. I mean, then at safety, the only really guy really have any kind of idea on what to expect at the safety position is Andre Turrentine. He's the only guy that I kind of have any expectation for. After that, it's a big question mark at safety. It kind of is to me. I mean, it's a real hot seat year for Willie Martinez, who is the current secondary coach at Tennessee. So those are 2 things I would keep an eye on. Red zone offense, I want to see it improved. I think it can improve. That's kind of got a little bit of a sliding scale compared to how explosive you are offensively. And then defensively, secondary's got to step up. I think the front 7 defensive line is going to be there. Like I mentioned, you may have the best defensive player in the league in James Pierce. Back end, a lot to be desired. You lost a lot. Like I mentioned, Wesley Walker gone. Danico Slaughter gone. Tamari McDonald gone. Brought in a few guys. Have a guy that's got his feet wet a little bit last year. We'll see. Big year for Willie Martinez. But let's get to the schedule. Open it up with UT Chattanooga, the Mocky Top, baby. Yeah, that's a win. That's a win. Let's give them a win. Then let's go to the Duke Mayos Classic, September 7th in Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium, NC State. This could be an under-the-radar game. I had this, me and Cole Thompson on the SEC Unfiltered platform did our the games were most fired up to see non-conference wise in the SEC. I put this one in there. NC State, this can be a fun game, but this is kind of a tone setter game for Tennessee. I think they need to win this game. NC State, Grayson McCall, quarterback coming over from Coastal Carolina. Dave Dorans revamped that roster up a little bit. But this is a game in year 4 that if I'm a Tennessee fan and I'm Josh Heupel, we should be prepared for this if we've been recruiting and managing the roster like we should have for the past 3 or 4 seasons. They should win this game. They should. I'd be disappointed if I was a Tennessee fan and lost this game. It's not going to be easy by any means, but it would be a disappointment if they lost this one. Should be an intriguing one. Kent State at home. You'd expect to win that one. It could be a little bit of a trap game, a little sleepy game between that and your SEC opener at Oklahoma, which will, man, that'll be a free-for-all. Josh Heupel's comeback party at Memorial Stadium. Sounds like things left a little stale. We'll see how that goes. That'll be a tough game. Bye week at Arkansas. Manageable. I think the road schedule is manageable. I think Tennessee's road schedule is very manageable. You get Florida at home. I think this is a year you should win this one. You won it 2 years ago when they came to your place. Alabama at home, you did the same transition year. Kalen DeBoer's first trip to Neyland Stadium could be an adjustment. We'll see. Very winnable game. Kentucky at home. I mean, I feel like Tennessee never loses to Kentucky. Why would it happen in Neyland this year? It has to end at some point, but I don't know about this year. It could, certainly could. I'm high on Kentucky. Love their front seven. I think Brock Vandergriff is going to be fine. But you get them at home. I don't know if it's going to be this year. Mississippi State at home. Mississippi State's one of those teams. I don't know. I think it's going to be a big adjustment with Jeff Levy and them this year. And I'm not against the Levy hire, but it could be a big adjustment. I don't see them going into Neyland and win. At Georgia, different story. Georgia's had Tennessee's number. It's going to be a tough one for Tennessee. UTEP at home, not necessarily easy, but a game you should expect to win. And then at Vanderbilt. So, I mean, Tennessee's probably going to be favorites rolling into every game except Georgia for sure. Oklahoma's early. We could probably project that right now. Tennessee will probably be favored by a point or two heading into Norman, I would think right now. Am I crazy for thinking that? I think they would be a favorite rolling into that right now. I'm not saying they'd win the game, but I think as we stand right now on May 22nd, they would be a favorite. Tennessee may be favored. I think they'll be favored in at least 10 games. At worst, 9, unless it really hits rock bottom or something after the Florida game or something, or after Alabama heading into the bye week. But, I mean, let's just say, best case scenario, win. Let's just say you lose one of these. Win, loss, win. 10-2. I think that's – I don't know. That's best case. Let's get 10-2 will be best case. I'm doing this live, people, on Tennessee's schedule, but here for you, by the way. Worst case, loss. You'll probably lose one of these 3, lose to Bama, lose to Kentucky, lose to Georgia. Again, I don't see 6-6. Could they lose some of these games to Kentucky at home? Sure, but I think realistic worst case for Tennessee this year should be 8-4. I think realistic best case, 10-2. And I know some Tennessee fans will probably argue, well, why not 11-1 or 12-0? Well, I mean, I think you're going to lose at Georgia. I think you can mark that one down. I'm not ready to mark any other of the 11 remaining games as for sure losses. But I don't know if you're going to be good enough in the back end to just pick, yep, we're going to go win the other 11 outside of the trip to Athens in mid-November. So let's give you a loss there, and then you win the rest 10-2. I think that's a realistic best case scenario. I'm sure some people in the comments aren't going to agree. Worst case, I can't go 6-6. It's them losing a lot of these. Let's say they split the NC State Oklahoma game, loss or 1, lose to Bama, lose to Kentucky, or maybe they lose NC State and at Oklahoma, and they beat Kentucky. Then they go lose at Georgia. I think 8-4 is worst case, really. Realistic worst case. Yeah, if you have injuries, they mount up. Nico Amavea gets hurt. They're playing my guy. They're playing my guy, the UCF backup, the walk-on transfer, coming back for me there, or they're playing the Jake Merklinger, true freshman kid. Either way, Nico gets hurt. Yeah, things change. They're off the table. But I think Tennessee's schedule is pretty easy. Because, I'm not high on the back end. I don't think they fix that with the personnel. I do like the front 7. I think some teams will struggle to run against Tennessee this year. But overall, I'm not overly fired up about the secondary. So I think, yeah, outside of Georgia, they'll slip up one more time. But again, after that, you could easily make the case Tennessee's a 10-2 team. And I think worst case 8-5. Again, injuries, yeah, you could get 6-6, 7-5. But again, I think 10-2, 7-5. So what would be considered a successful season, in my opinion, for Tennessee in 2024? I think it's a 10-2 finish, which would probably correlate with the offense getting better in the red zone, probably a little bit more explosive. The scale changes a little bit. And then defensively, the secondary would probably be better than I'm expecting to be 10-2. So I think it all goes hand in hand. So I think a successful season for Tennessee and Josh Heupel in 2024 would be 10-2, would most likely getting you into the first ever 12-team college football playoff. I think Tennessee fans would be fired up at that point. Imagine hosting a first-round playoff game in December at Neyland Stadium. It'd be probably a little nippy in that time of year in Knoxville up in Neyland, but it would be fun nonetheless. So I think 10-2, red zone woes. Let's get a little bit more explosive this year than defensively. I love the front seven with Rodney Gardner. That defense is done. You may have the best player in the conference defensively. Secondary, just improve. And I think 10-2 is not that far behind because, again, I think the schedule is very manageable from a relatively speaking here in the SEC. But I appreciate you joining us on this segment of what would be a successful season for Tennessee in 2024. I'm your host, Dave Shumate. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. This is SEC content 24/7, 365. You do not want to miss any of the stuff we have coming at you. Again, I appreciate you. You have a fantastic day.